This is one of Hancock's Thanksgiving proclamations. This is when we found out Benedict Arnold was trying to kill George Washington. And it's actually an amazing story. And he says, wow, the fingerprints of God in this are such to know that this was a God thing, because the way it came about, they should never have discovered the treason. It should never have been discovered. It was too well laid plan. So
for people who don't know that story, maybe you can tell the story.
Yeah, the story is really kind of interesting because Benedict Arnold had an ego, and his ego didn't get matched in the American Army because he thought he should have been promoted much faster, and he wasn't being recognized and wasn't being promoted. So he starts saying, well, the British will respect me. They'll honor me. I can get a promotion through them. And so he starts working with the British. He's in charge of West Point. And by the way, the biggest statue you find when you go to the battlefield is Saratoga, which is the first major victory in the American Revolution. Massive statue of Benedict Arnold, because he was the hero. He was an American general. He was courageous, but he just didn't think he got enough respect. And so because of that ego kind of thing, he turns to the British, and so he works with them. And because his American general is so good, he has West Point. All of West Point is under his control. And so he makes this plan to give West Point to the British, and he's going to have them there at the time that George Washington arrives so they can kill Washington or capture Washington in everything right there. So what happens is a British officer, John Andre, is going back and forth with Benedict Arnold, and so they make the plans, they lay it out. Andre actually takes the plans, folds them up, puts them in the bottom of his shoe to hide in case anybody stops and they won't find it. And he gets into what is considered to be a safe part of New York. It is run by the British. All the Loyalists are there. He's out of the American part of New York. He's back in the British part of New York. And he runs up on three guys and starts talking to them. And these guys, they're British guys. I can tell them what's going on. He starts sharing more information than he should have. Turned out they weren't British guys. They were three American militiamen who had just escaped from a British prison. And so here's three Americans who shouldn't even be in this area. They were prisoners. They got free. And now as Arnold starts becoming a little too open with them, they start getting a little curious, and they start thinking, this doesn't smell right. And so they actually grab him and take him to an American post, which wasn't supposed to be in that area at all. So everything was improbable all the way through. They searched, didn't find anything, and they said, let's search again. And for some reason, checked the bottom of his shoe, found the papers. So everything was, it was just too many coincidences. Is that what they saw? This is too providential, too much God here. And so I can call them that. And one of the best stories deals with Benedict Arnold, because Benedict Arnold, once they discover the treason, he jumps over to the British side quick to get out of town before he gets executed for treason. And so he's now British side. They make him a general. And so as the British Army is moving south out of New York down toward Yorktown, Benedict Arnold, big part of that, he took his soldiers, he raided New London, Connecticut. The Battle of Groton Heights was Benedict Arnold killing Americans. And so he's now a British general. And as they work down into Virginia, one of the problems George Washington has and young General Lafayette is they just don't have any intelligence on what the British are doing. They don't know what the British do until they see it. It's like, if we could know, we could plan, we could be prepared. And so a black man named James Armistead became good friends with Lafayette. He was fighting in the Revolution, and Lafayette, white guy, and Lafayette was massive anti-slavery guy, and so big equality guy. And as he's talking, it's kind of like in the conversation, it kind of goes that Lafayette says, man, if we could just have some intelligence to know what they were doing, it would so help us. And James said, well, I'm willing to go do that. And Lafayette, no, that's way too dangerous. And so they're just talking, and James says, no, I'll do that. And so what happens is James goes straggling into the British camp, and he goes straggling in, and he says, I'm an escaped slave. I hate the Americans. They're so mean to me. They're just... And so the British said, well, we'll take you in. And so he begins faithfully serving the British. And fairly soon they say, hey, why don't we let you serve the officers? Because you're really good, great attitude, we love you. So they made him the servant to Benedict Arnold, the British general. So here you got a spy now who's with Benedict Arnold, and Arnold is with all the other British generals as they're making their plans. And so what happens is James Armistead every night gets word back to Lafayette and Washington, here's what they're doing. And so the British are moving around, and suddenly the Americans aren't where they're supposed to be, and they're over here where the British are. And then they send Benedict Arnold off on a mission, so he's gone. So James stays behind the British camp. And Lord Cornwallis actually takes him on as his servant. So now you got the commander-in-chief with a spy there, and they're having a conversation kind of thing, and it's like Cornwallis says, man, we've got to have a spy in the camp somewhere, because now the Americans know what we're doing before we do it. And James, I know it's going to be really hard, but you've been so good to us. I know you're going to hate this idea, but would you go back and be a spy for us against the Americans? And say, oh, no, don't make me go back to the Americans. So he becomes the first double spy in American history, and because of his intelligence is why we're able to trap Cornwallis out in Yorktown in the American Revolution.